The original six started really because growing up in a rural area, I knew we didn't know what we didn't have. And I knew a lot of my friends growing up, both parents were working. A lot of times they would go home to an empty house. And, you saw the strains on families, you saw the challenges. And as governor, what I noticed was the wealthier districts got plenty of resources and the rural districts didn't get as much. So obviously, as governor, my goal was, okay, how can we get businesses into these areas so that they can also have the same benefits, but also wanted to give an added push. And so we started this organization called the Original Six Foundation. And the goal was, how do we help these kids in these areas get to the next level? And, we started out with 150 kids our first year. 10 years later, almost 5,000 kids have gone through the process. We now have over 1,000 kids in after school programs with real certified teachers, 88% under the poverty index. And what I'm most proud of is recently the USC Institute of Rural Education charted our kids, and from fall to spring, our kids improved over 35% in both reading and math. And that really is the goal of what we were trying to do. And it continues to be doing very well. The teachers in the classroom notice which kids need to be in our after school program. When the kids get to the after school program, these are their actual certified teachers. And what they do is they help them with their homework. They help them study for a test. They help them improve on their reading and math. But more than that, we try and grow these kids. We take them to a lot of our great businesses across South Carolina. They'll go to Honda, they'll go to Boeing. And a child that grows up in a rural area has never even been out of their town, seen a company and seen jobs and seen what they can be when they grow up. And so to really have these kids see something bigger than themselves and imagine themselves in it, I think was really the goal, was for them to realize that, it doesn't matter where you're born and raised. You deserve a good quality education and you deserve to know what that dream might look like. The original six, growing up in Bamberg, we were the only Indian family in that 2,500 person town. I always say, my father wore a turban, my mother wore a sari. They didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there. I remember, when I would be playing on the playground and I would get teased and I'd come home and my mom would say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. And so a lot of lessons learned on that playground played throughout my life. And the original six was, I'm one of four siblings. And we just always referred to our family as the original six. And so that was really the idea of, if we're talking about rural education and we're talking about the challenges of growing up, let's also talk about the original six where I grew up in and how we, grew that. And I always tell people that even though we had challenges in Bamberg, they grew to love us. They grew to support us. This was the same state that elected me governor. And it just goes to the heart of how amazing our communities are and our state is, but we all have to do our part to chip in to help. 98% of the teachers say they have seen improvement in their kids and appreciate the program. We're in 13 schools in 8 counties. And the number one goal, we have Nick Washington, who's an amazing director of our schools. The number one goal is we don't go in there and just offer services. The school has to be equally invested. They have to want this as much as we want this for their kids. And so we make sure that schools also have skin in the game. We make sure that we've got skin in the game. And the goal of both of us is to make sure that we support the teachers and support the students that they're trying to help. And it's been a great partnership. These students, they're second grade through 8th grade in the after school program. They're starting in their educational time in kindergarten and first grade with the original six library. These are your future workers. And, a lot of our employers, and I saw this when I was governor around the state, they say they want, yes, they want skilled workforce, but they also want a workforce that knows social skills, that knows how to communicate, that, can kind of also see themselves in a better light. And so one, we want these kids to see the different companies we have in South Carolina that they could work for one day. But we also want these employers to see these kids as their future workforce. And to say you support education in the state to one thing, to act on it is another. We're always looking for corporate sponsors. We're always looking for businesses who want to invest in these kids, whether it's helping us with, field trips or whether it's helping us support and the after school program. It's very important. I mean, these are our leaders. These are our future leaders. I used to be one of them.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we understand these rural areas need a little bit of extra love to make sure we can get these kids to the right place. I'm most proud of the fact that when we started this, we didn't know what our reach would be, that we didn't have all the answers, but we said, let's start somewhere. And so our goal was let's pick one school and let's do an after school program. And then let's go into other communities and see where we can help. And I think the fact that we went in blindly to say, let's try and help these kids, and 10 years later, we know that we've helped over 5,000 kids in rural South Carolina, shows that it's not just about talking about problems, it's about acting on solutions. And, I remember um, my first year as governor going into Allendale and seeing that the high school track team had won the state championship like 5 years in a row in Allendale, and they had no track. They had no track, but they won the state championship 5 years in a row. When you think about these areas, you may never know these kids, but they will never forget how you made them feel when you support them in a program like this. And that's really been our drive, that's been our focus, and it's our mission to continue helping as many of these kids as we can.